What's something about yourself that sounds like a complete lie but is 100% true?
Okay, so when my mom was pregnant with me, she decided she wants to run away from my dad. So she's 8 months pregnant and she already has a daughter, my sister, who was like 3 at the time. So she drives all the way down south while 8 months pregnant with my sister, who was 3 at the time. So fast forward 3 years later, I'm 3, my sister is 6, and she decides she wants to get back with my father. So she goes ahead and gets back on the road and drives all the way back to Chicago. So while she's on the road, her car breaks down and this random stranger decides that he's going to take her to the gas station to get some gas. So she gets in the car with this stranger with both of her kids, a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. And she's looking down and it's like a whole bunch of candy in his car, right? So he's like, I'll watch your kids while you... Okay, y'all, so this is part 2. So we're at the gas station with this strange guy, and he basically tells my mom, okay, you get out and you get the gas, or you pay for the gas, and I'll stay here and I'll watch the kids. So what really alarmed my mom was the fact that he kept saying like, oh, I love kids, kids love me, and he was asking where our father was, and of course he had all that candy in his car. So my mom was like, oh no, it's okay, I'll just take them with me and we can get the gas together. And he was like visibly frustrated that she wouldn't let us stay with him. So she got us out the car, and y'all, literally, she said seconds after we all get out the car, this man just drives off, like he speeds off and hops onto the expressway. Mind you, he was supposed to take my mom back to her car to put the gas in her car. So we're back on the road to Chicago on our way to meet with my dad, and y'all will never believe what happened. So we finally met up with my father, and he was in the car with this random lady. Okay guys, so this is part 3, and we finally met up with my dad all the way in Chicago. So we get to Chicago and he's with this random lady in the car. So I'm like, who is this woman? What really stood out to me was the fact that she had baby shoes on her front mirror. So I'm like, who the hell is this lady? But my mom goes and hugs her. So I'm like, okay, she must be a friend to us. So everything's going great. My mom's working, my dad is taking care of me, and he would take me to his job sometimes. So basically his job was to go out into the streets, pretend like he was homeless, and take his 3-year-old daughter, me, with him to beg for money. So we were doing this for a while, y'all, and my mom had no idea until one day, the woman I was telling you about earlier, she got really upset. I guess because he was spending so much time with me, I guess she was jealous. So she got really upset, and she confessed everything to my mom. So my mom and her was pregnant around the same time. Okay guys, so we are on part 4. So basically after this woman ended up telling my mom everything about how my dad used to use me and take me along with him to beg for money on the streets. So basically after my dad would get the money from the streets, he would take me to this woman's house because she had a son that was the same age as me, and I would, play with the little boy, and I vaguely remember playing with him, but I was so young. So my dad would just leave me with this random lady and do God knows what. My mom was at work, my sister was at school, and I would be left with a stranger. So fast forward to her telling my mom everything. So this woman, I didn't know who she is, but my mom knew who she was because my dad told my mom that this was his cousin or something like this, his family member. So she had been hanging out with this lady prior in the past, so she knew her. So she ended up telling my mom that her son... Okay guys, so we're on part 5. So the woman is just busted in there and revealed all the secrets, all the family secrets or whatever. And before she's about to tell the most juicy part, my dad come rushing in there telling her to get the F out. So she gets the F out, and I don't see this woman again for 18 years. So at this point, if y'all been watching the story, my mom ran away at 8 months pregnant, and if y'all do the math, this woman's son is my little brother. So this whole time, I've been hanging out with my own brother, my father's son. So my mom is still oblivious to this whole entire situation, and she has no idea that the woman's son is my little brother. So my parents are arguing and stuff, but things are actually getting better because my dad wants to marry my mom. So they go down to the courthouse, and when they get to the courthouse, the woman behind the front desk is looking at my dad and says, weren't you just here? Okay, guys, so this is part 6. So, find out that my dad is married to someone else. But anyways, long story short, my parents, they break up, and years later, my dad and his wife have another child. So with all the drama with my parents and stuff, I never even met my younger sister. So she was about 1, almost 2, when everything went down. So I literally didn't even know that I had a baby sister. So this is how I found out that I have a baby sister. So one day we're watching the news, and the number one news story on television is that this young baby girl gets killed. So I'm like 10 at the time, and my mom ends up telling me, yeah, this is your sister, and she tells me everything that happened, and I'm just like bawling my eyes out because I never even got a chance to meet her. So what happened was, all right, y'all, so this is part 7, and everybody was saying, why is it taking so long? Because it's a real story. Like, there are a lot of details to the story. You can't just bullshit a story, you know what I'm saying? If you're gonna tell it, you gotta tell it all. Yeah, so what happened with my sister is a very, very tragic story. So trigger warning, because I know that this might, trigger some people. So this happened when I was like 8 or 9. It happened in 2004. And so what happened was that my sister and her mother went to the mall, and this crazy man just decided he wanted to stab a 1-year-old child to death. He had stabbed another woman, and then he ran into my sister and her mom, and he stabbed her mom, and he stabbed my little baby sister. That same day, he had set his house on fire. So this man was crazy. So a teenage boy did club him over the head, and he was caught that same day, and he's now serving life in prison.
I think I met my long-lost twin at uni, and she's my flatmate. This is us. What? Why do we look the same? And the weirdest part is, our birthdays are a day apart.
So this is actually my first TikTok, but I think I have a pretty good answer for this, considering I didn't actually believe it myself at first. So I am a professional bubbler, which means that people pay me to go to music festivals, community events, private events, and all sorts of fun stuff and blow bubbles all day. I quite literally chased after a bubble and found myself a job, and it's the best thing that's ever happened to me and the coolest thing that's ever happened to me, and I wouldn't want it any other way. The company is called Joyful Bubbles, and I would love to tell you guys more about it if you guys are interested in that kind of thing.
I used to be a private chef for a family, but I wasn't hired to cook for the entire family. I was hired to cook for only one person in the family who had a lot of food allergies. They didn't want me to cook in the family's home out of fear of cross-contamination, so they rented an apartment for the sole purpose of me to cook in. It was essentially a dedicated kitchen. Nobody lived there, and we set it up as much as we could, sort of like a commercial kitchen. Every single thing this person ate was made 100% from scratch from us in this kitchen. We even butchered all of our own meat from a specialty farmer that we got it from, and we would get whole pieces of pork and beef fat and render our own fat to cook with. This was not only more than a full-time job for me, but I had 2 assistant private chefs that worked full-time underneath me. The family also traveled a lot, and we would travel the country with them on a private jet, bringing all of the food we made with us. We even got an in-home freeze dryer so that we could essentially make our own homemade astronaut food that was safe for them for easier travel and storage.
So in 2001, I was 3 at the time, and me and my parents, we were flying across the United States to go visit my aunt and uncle, and some relatives, and this was a month after 9/11 happened. So airport security was super, super tight, and we get up to the security booth, and they're checking our tickets and everything, and they go, "Who's so-and-so?" And they repeat my first, middle, and last name, and they check the spelling, and it's exactly how mine is spelled, and my first name is spelled a little bit differently than normal. And my parents point to me, and I'm 3, I'm super tiny, and they're like, "It's her." And the security guard is like, "Are you sure?" And my parents are like, "Yeah, here's her birth certificate." And they were like, "Oh, well, her name is on the suspected terrorist list."
Not entirely sure if I should say this or not, but basically, I was not your run-of-the-mill teenager. When chat rooms were first a thing, we were taught to be safe and not be yourself, and never give out any personal information. Don't tell them your real name, your age, or where you're from. So I kind of took that and ran with it. Long story short, I got into some trouble. And because of that trouble, at the age of 15, I had a record with the FBI. Was completely banned from the internet until I was 18. A few months after my 18th birthday, I made a Facebook page. Within a couple of days, my mom got a phone call to ask if she was aware that I was on the internet again. It's totally legal, but they're totally watching me. So that's a thing.